Excuse me. So now I'll just click on open, and I'm going to open up my lesson 1 folder. Which will be empty. So I'm going to make a new file here. I'll just right click on my folder and I'm going to choose new PHP file. If you don't have that option, just make a file, new file, and you'll save it with a PHP extension. So I'm going to call this one PHP info. And PHP Storm will automatically assign the .php extension for me. If you have to type the extension in, that's fine. So we're going to get a blank file called PHP info. Now, one of the nice things, if you're using PHP Storm, notice it sets up an HTML template for me already. So I don't have to type all my regular HTML tags. I'm going to take this out, and I'll take this out. So all I have is just a plain old vanilla HTML file right now. That's blank. So if you don't have any HTML in your file, just add the few basic tags, the HTML, head, title, body, open and closing tags. And maybe I'll put a title in here that says PHP info. Now, just to show you what I mean by code hinting, I want my editor to do things like this. When I type an HTML tag and I hit a space, I want it to give me all the code prompts. So if I want to add other attributes, I don't have to guess what those are. It will prompt me, and I can just pick from the list. So for example, if I want to say something like class, right, and it will auto-complete the equals and put in the brackets. So these things aren't necessary, but it saves us a lot of time typing. And it will show us all the available options for us. You know, when we worked in C#, we saw this with Visual Studio, or if you worked in Java, what IDE, what program did you use in Java? Did you mostly use Eclipse or NetBeans? Right, it does the same thing. Gives you code hints in Java in the same way. So a good editor should always give us code hints in the language we're working in. So now we want to write one line of PHP code. We just want to call a built-in function that's part of the PHP library. So what's the first thing we're going to need on here if we want to write some PHP code? Yeah, we're going to need those PHP tags. So I open a tag here. And when I hit enter, my editor automatically creates the closing tag, which is good. Now, I've put it down on another line. It doesn't matter whether those tags go all on one line or they go on separate lines. Doesn't matter. So now we'll make a comment here. We're going to call a function or a method. We didn't create this method. It comes with any web server that has PHP installed. And notice I put my / and WebStorm puts that line in gray so we can see clearly it's a comment. So the name of the function we want to call, and here's what here's also my code hinting. When I start typing, I get a whole list of methods that start with PHP. And the method we want is called PHP info. Now, we could pass some information, some optional parameters to this method, but we're not going to. This method doesn't have to have any parameters. And now we just want to terminate that line. What character would go at the end, just like in Java or C#? Yeah, just a semicolon at the end to terminate the command. So that's our first PHP page. That's all it does. Now, in order to try this page out, we're going to have to put it on a web server. Now, I have a local server here already. So though it says it's offline, I guess I better make sure it starts. So to run my page, I can do it this way. Because I have a local server, I can try going to it this way. Mine runs on port 800. Yours probably runs on port 80, which is the default. I have another web server running on port 80, so I had to change my Apache server to run on 800. So that one little function, when that script runs, it gives us all kinds of information about the server environment, right? We can see what type of server it is, what kinds of things are installed, what's my host name, what is my folder and file name. Lots of stuff is in here. Just that one little function prints out all of this. Notice also when I view the source of the page, if I search for the PHP tag, notice it doesn't find them. Why does it not show? Why can't I see those PHP tags in the source of my page? Good guess. No, it's not encryption. Yeah, because that script, remember, it's called server-side script. The PHP code lives and stays on the server and it executes. All that function does is generate all this HTML, and it only sends HTML back to the browser. So the end user cannot see our server-side code. That doesn't get sent to the browser. Only the output of our functions gets sent to the browser. Now, if I just go into my file system and try to open this with my browser, actually, maybe I can do it this way through the file menu. I don't even know that I can do this anymore. So let's say I want to try and open this using my browser. So I want to try and open it from the file system rather than using my web server. The file opens, but notice there's no content. Right? My function didn't execute. It's supposed to display all this information to us. Notice here, when we view the source of the page now, we can actually see our server-side code. We don't want this. That code's supposed to stay on the server. It's not supposed to show up in the user's browser. So how come in this case, why didn't that function execute, and why is it showing us our code? It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to do this. It's supposed to give us all this stuff. So have a look carefully at the two URLs. So here's the address in Firefox where we get all this output. In Chrome, we don't get any of that, and look at the URL. What's different about how I loaded the pages? So Firefox is working, Chrome is not working. Right, so in this case, I just opened it like I would an HTML page, just directly from a file path on the system. But in order for our PHP code to execute, we need a web server, and we need to serve that page up from a web server. Otherwise, our code doesn't run. So if we want to get this to run, if we don't have a local server online, if we don't have a local server, and only a few of you do, we're going to need to upload this code to a web server that we have an account on. So probably you should already have your FTP credentials saved in your FTP program. Probably used FileZilla, I would assume, most of you last semester. So let's open up FileZilla and let's copy this file up to the web server, and then it should run properly if it's on a live web server. So I'm going to open up FileZilla. Now, I don't have an FTP connection to Azure here. At least I don't think I have one. But I have one to DreamHost, where I saved my credentials last semester. So I'm just going to click on it. And it'll bring me to my, so here's my local file system, and here's the web server. So open up whatever connection to whatever server you've been using in Scott's class. And then over here on my left side, I'm going to go and browse into that same folder. So here's my PHP page we just created today. And what I suggest you do once you get connected to the web server, I'm going to suggest you make a new folder for our course and put all your PHP stuff in that folder so it doesn't get mixed up with the work you're doing in your other classes or you've done in the past. To make a folder, you can just right-click and choose Create Directory and create a directory called COMP1006. Don't put any spaces in it and keep it lowercase. So I already have a COMP1006 folder. So you'll want to create a COMP1006 folder so you can put all your files in it. Keep it organized. Maybe. So I've already got, and then once you've got it open, I would create a lesson 1 folder. So make a different subfolder for each week. Again, that way all your work's going to stay organized. We're going to build lots of PHP pages over the course of the semester, so you don't want them all just living in the same folder. So make a lesson 1 directory. I already have an old one. And now I'm going to upload my file here. So now I should be able to execute this file from my web server, my live web server as well. Now, whatever folder you put it in, that'll be you created a website on Azure. So you may have to look at what you called it, because I don't know, right? Your site will be whatever name you gave it, I think, .azuresites.net or azurewebsites.net. So now I'm going to try and load it from my server. I'll go into my COMP1006 folder and lesson 1. And I'm going to load my PHP info. So now I've got the same file running, but I get different information, right? Because this information is now related to the DreamHost web server that I'm using. If you run it on Azure, you'll get different information, like the file paths and server name, etc. But my code is running here. I also want to show you the importance of the PHP extension. I'm going to rename my file for a minute. take out the PHP extension and give it an HTML extension. You don't have to do this. I just want you to see what will happen. When I load it now, I get no errors, but my PHP code doesn't execute, just like when I opened it from my file system. And once again, I've exposed publicly my code now, which is potentially a huge security problem because that code might contain things like a database connection with the username and password. So without that .php extension, our PHP code doesn't execute and it gets printed to the source of the page and users can see it. So we want to make sure our file has a PHP extension. If you can't remember what the address or what the website address of your Azure site is, you may need to log into the Azure portal and it will show you or give you a direct link you can click on that will take you to your site. Okay, so this would be whatever site you set up, or you could create a new application in the Azure portal. If you want to create a COMP1006 application in there, you could.
I'm having a bit of problem while accessing the file.
Okay. Are you able to put it on the server?
Yeah, put it on the server.
Okay.
But like while accessing the URL to Azure, I can't access it.
Okay. Did you get an error? Is there an error message or is it just blank?
You don't have the permission.
You don't have the permission. Okay. Let me come and have a look.
So this is the copy from here.
Okay, yeah, so it's there, which is good. Okay. So here, you have to specify the name of the page, just /phpinfo.php. So you have to specify the file name you want to load. I think you missed an O.
No, I didn't put another.
Okay, let's go back to file to look for that.
That's for this one. Okay, it's that was.
There you go.
Should I keep my file?
Pure web, I think it's basic docs. I think that's
your main spot.
yeah. So in here, just create a COMP1006 folder, and in there make a lesson new subfolder every week. So 1006 lesson 1, COMP1006 lesson 2. You can put everything in there. Okay, let's see. I think the path is right. Oh, you're trying to run it this way. No, you can't. You need a web server. That's what you want to install. You need to install Apache. So we'll talk about that. So for today, you want to upload it with FTP. Okay, so you're running locally. Okay. You've got localhost 80. It should :80. There's a colon there. That's fine. Yeah, try that. How are you guys doing? Okay, so you create created the file. Have you tried connecting, putting it on the server yet? Okay. You want to try and connect with FileZilla. Did you use FileZilla last semester with Azure? Yes. Okay. So your file is fine. So you want to connect. Do you have your Azure connection in FileZilla from last semester? Did you use that in Scott's class? Okay. So get your connection up. Search run. If it won't connect, you can reset deployment credentials. If you don't have your FTP login saved from last semester, if you log into Azure and go into your site, there's a link that says deployment credentials. You can recreate the FTP username and password, and then you can put that in FileZilla. Okay, here's it running. Good. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
one more time. Okay, click on File. File, Site Manager. There, you already have the site set up. If you could just click one, it'll connect. Yeah, so you can connect to one of the previous ones, and then just create a COMP1006 folder inside for this course. And then you can put all your files from this course in there.
Okay, so basically, first step by using add to create PHP, and just like your advice, I create a subfolder for my week 1 lesson 1 file.
Okay.
I've also got FileZilla open, but I'm not sure how to recreate the list of the steps that you.
Did you save? Click on File. Did you save your credentials in here from last semester? Click on Site Manager. File. Site Manager. There. So you have an account set up already for Azure. If you click on Azure, double click it, that will connect. There you go. So if you go into Site, www. Yeah, so now if you copy that file, now you can access it in your browser. So we're going to make one more simple file. And then we'll stop for today. So I'm going to make one more PHP file. I'll call this email.php. We're going to do a couple things in here. We're going to look at how do we use a variable in PHP. It's a little different than how we do it in Java or C#. We want to look at how we print a message, and then we'll send ourselves an email message. Okay? For those of you who are running this locally, it probably won't send the email from your local machine. You probably have to put it on the web, because unless you have a mail server running, it's got no way to send the email. So we'll put on some PHP tags. And actually, just above, I'll put on a little heading using a variable. And sending an email. Just so our page isn't blank, we have some kind of HTML content on the page. So we're going to create 4 variables in PHP. Now in Java or C#, when we create a variable, we have to make a couple of decisions. What things do we need for every variable when we create it in C# or in Java? Basically 2 things we have to do. Yeah, we have to give the variable a type, a string, an integer, a date, And we have to give it a name, right? A unique name. In PHP, we only have to do one of those things because PHP is loosely typed. So variables have no data type. So we don't have to say this variable is a string, this variable is an integer, this variable is a decimal. So all we do is I'm just going to create a variable called 2. And in PHP, the $sign has to be the first character of every variable. That's how PHP knows it's a variable, because it has a $sign. And here, put in an email address that you own and you have access to. And I'll end that line with a semicolon. Now notice I put my string in single quotes. When we were working in C#, we used double quotes around our text values. In Java, did you typically use single quotes or double quotes around string values? Use double quotes. In PHP, we can actually use either one, but it's going to be easier later on if we use single quote, if we get in the habit of using single quotes instead of double quotes around text values. Okay. Let's create a second variable called subject. And what the actual subject in, well, that doesn't really matter. And the last variable we'll call message. We've set up 3 variables. We don't have to say that they're strings. It doesn't matter. If we want to change those values to true, false, or January 10th, 2017, PHP allows us to do this. It's very kind of loose and unstructured. We'll maybe make a comment here. Set up variables for our email. And I better put in an email address I actually have access to. Please don't put in my email address, put your own in. Actually, I may have to use another one. Let's see. So to send an email, PHP has a function called mail. And you can see my code editor tells us what order the parameters, the information this function needs. So it needs them in the same order we set them up. So our first parameter is the email address we want to send the message to. The second parameter is the email subject. Third parameter is the message. You'll notice those are the only required parameters. We don't have to specify who the message is coming from. Now, we'll add that in a minute, but this function works even without it. It just uses the default email account on the mail server we're using. So the message is going to come from kind of a funny looking account, but we'll try it out. And we'll terminate that command with a semicolon too. Now, I'm not sure if this will actually send to my George an email or not. I'm going to try it. So I'll save the page. And now let's print out a message. So we'll use the echo command we saw earlier. After we've sent an email, we'll print out a message to the screen. So I want you to save your page, upload it to the web server, and then in your browser, load your email.php page. And then go and check your email and see if a message comes in. So I'm going to upload my file. We'll just refresh. Now it shows up here. So I'll upload it to the server. Now it's here. We'll try it out. So I'll just replace PHP info. Okay. So we've got both our HTML message as well as the message in our PHP code. Sure. And now I'm going to check my email. And why? So here's my message. Right? There's our subject. There's the message body. You will notice one strange thing. What's the strange thing about the email? Yeah, the sending account, because we didn't specify. So it just used the default account on the mail server, which probably isn't very good, right? We don't really want this. We're going to want to specify some kind of email account that makes sense for our particular website. So we can change this. So if I don't want it to come from this email, well, let's add one more variable. Let's add a from, and I'll send it from me to me. Now in our mail function, the from is a little different. We have to specify it this way. From colon. And then we need to append on our from variable. This is one of the weirdest things about PHP. In PHP, when you want to put two strings together, it has a very strange operator for doing this. In Java and C#, if we have two strings, we want to attach them together. How do we attach them together or concatenate them? What character do we use? If you have, say, first name and last name, and you want to display them together as one value. And it's not a, yeah, it's a plus, which makes sense. Same in C#, it's a plus. In PHP, they don't use a plus for putting strings together. PHP uses a dot, which makes no sense. I think of the dot as separating two things, not putting them together. So now we want our from. We're adding on our from variable onto the text from colon. If we save, copy this file back to the web server and refresh, we should get a second email, but now it should come from whatever address we've specified here. So I'm just going to re-upload it. I'll refresh my page. And I'll just wait. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. My message didn't come in. Anybody have, there's a reason why. Anybody have a thought? Why did this work the first time? But why didn't it work the second time?
Not work at the time.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It didn't work.
Didn't work either time? Yeah, it's because of permissions. Because I'm trying to send from a georgiancollege.ca email, well, DreamHost doesn't manage that domain. So it's an anti-spam mechanism, right? They're not going to let me send unless I use a domain that runs, an email address that runs on their server. So that's so that we can't spam people. Okay. So if I want it to work, I can just take that part out and it'll work. If it's not working for you, it's probably also because Azure is maybe blocking it. If you try it on Azure, I'm curious if you try sending the email to your Microsoft account instead. Like if you have a Hotmail account or a Live. Didn't work with your Live account? Let me try it with my Hotmail and see. Well, I'm not on Azure, actually. I'm not using Azure right now. So it may just have to do with permissions on the server. As we noticed, this didn't send when I tried to send from my Georgian. So long as I send from their server without that last parameter, DreamHost was okay with it. I'll just comment that out for now.
So when I first did the coding and then tried uploading access and hosting start.html, it kept asking me for permission of the username and password. So then I tried logging onto my Microsoft Azure account, of the same process, and now I'm just trying to code as well as make sure that I can actually access the web page.
Okay, sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question. Was there a question in there?
Yeah. Even though I was trying to follow you step by step, I was trying to see if I can access the web page that we created, but I was not. So now I'm just trying to copy down the rest of the code.
Okay. So I'm going to put all this code online. I'll put it online in a minute. So rather than posting a link every single week, I do want to show you where the code is. So inside of Tools and Resources, the second link that says Rich's GitHub page. For those of you who are in Computer Programmer, do you have GitHub? Have you used GitHub or not yet? You have used it? Okay, good. Which class did you get GitHub set up with? In Internet of Things? Okay. So what I'm going to do each week at the end of class, I'm just going to create a new repository. It'll be COMP1006, Lesson 1, Winter 2017. And all the files we do for today will be in that repository. So I'll push all my code from today, all these two files, I'll push it up to GitHub in a minute. And the link is inside of Tools and Resources. So if you want the code, I won't put up a new link every week. Just go to my GitHub page and you'll see the work from each week and you can go and grab it. If you either aren't here or you want to compare your files because it's not working. So the other thing I'm going to suggest for next week, and the links are also in here in Tools and Resources. So here are the links. Where is it? Right down at the bottom of this item, I suggest if you're a Windows user, install XAMPP or WAMP. If you're a Mac user, install MAMP so that you can do most of the work locally in class. It'll just save you time. So that way you're not constantly having to upload your stuff as we're working in class. These are free. They're not there, and you can basically just accept all of the defaults to install and configure them. Just go through the wizard, keep clicking next and okay. Okay, it'll save you time. So I would recommend you have that installed for the start of class next week. Okay, there's no lab, there's no assignments or anything this week. So you can take the week off, get your machine configured with the server and the software you want to use. If you want to use PHP Storm, get it installed for and registered for next week's class. Okay. And next week we'll start looking at how do we capture data online and connect and save it into a database. That's what we want to do next week. Okay, that's it for today. Yes, if you're having an issue, I can come and have a look. I'm just going to give me 1 second to push my code up to GitHub, so then it'll be online for everybody now, and I'll come have a look. Sorry?
Your,
It's right here. So when you click, that is this takes you to my GitHub ID. It'll take you right here. So if you just click on repositories, right? So like here was all my stuff from yesterday's classes. So I'll do today's right here. So you'll always see the newest repository right at the top. And so I'll just create and push this code right now, and then I'll come have a look. Okay, have a good week.
PHP is this
Sorry?
my PHP is this the one?
Yep.
And which makes you have to give the message that I'm a student.
Create an account on their site.
Yeah, I created one.
Okay, so you may just need to use the contact form on their page.
Yeah, there are many contactors.
Yeah, there is a contact form which you can fill out, and you can say, I've just installed PHP Storm. I am a student. Here's my student email. Can I get a student license for 1 year? Yeah, you probably just have to contact sales. There, scroll down. Probably sales support would make the most sense. Bradley and Gary will be with you, both you guys, in just a sec. The files are on GitHub now, so you can refer to them.
Okay, so if I could just type in the coding. Apparently the server got disconnected, and without Microsoft Azure, it wanted me to use the username and password thing. But right now, I'm just trying to see if I can do.
Go to Blackboard, your browser. Go to Blackboard, click Rich's GitHub page.
I've seen
Repositories, and the 2 files are right here.
it. You ever go to Maker Labs?
Click on that link.
Right here.
Yeah. And you can click on either file, and you can see all the code. Okay. So I will always put, whenever you want to see previous code, you can just go to my GitHub, and I'll put the code for every lesson.
You're at my make it with
Okay. So there's a thing that I'm running. So this is a code.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, and you're putting it on Azure?
Yeah, that's my file. So I'll just transfer
Okay,
it.
you did it correctly. You haven't done anything wrong. I think it's just blocking the sending of the email
Okay.
for security reasons.
I see it. I didn't go.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with your code. Do you have access to the DreamHost server, or no, they didn't give you accounts?
They did give me, but I don't know. I don't remember.
If you have access, it would be in your student email. It may be from last September. If you just do a search, if you do a search in your student email for DreamHost, it'll show you the credentials.
I tried the Outlook email as well.
Because it's probably just Azure's blocking, doesn't give you access to the mail server. In your database class, are you using DreamHost, the MySQL server on DreamHost?
Yeah, MySQL.
Okay, your FTP login for DreamHost is the same as your database login for MySQL, because DreamHost is the same server.
For my experience, it's just one class, and we have downloaded the app and we have created a table.
Oh, okay, so you created on a local
Yeah,
server?
look at it.
Oh, okay, I see, it's local.
Okay, so
So do a search, just do a search. Just type the word DreamHost.
I had an
Search.
issue like with the DreamHost, so with the MySQL. So This guy, he sent me, where did it go?
It's probably Greg Smith, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did. So he gave me something, he gave me these two.
Right, so this will be, if you use that for FTP, that will work, that will connect you to the web server in FTP with those same credentials.
Okay,
Okay, go back to your browser. Right here. Search the word, just search DreamHost. Well, it's actually one word, no space. Yep.
That's the email I have.
Okay, that's right. So let's look at it.
That's,
Okay, here, he's showed you.
that's the file 50.
Yeah, so that's the host,
Okay.
computerstudy.es, and then you use, that's your username and that's your password.
Okay. So I don't need to like set up something like this. So like I should.
It's all set, yeah, so if you go to, click on File, in Site Manager, and create a new site, call it DreamHost. Okay, so the host is Computer Studies, the dot before the ES. Yes, yeah. Change the, you have to change one or two, yeah, so that's the username. And I'll have to change one or two things in the settings. Okay, for protocol, change the protocol. I think it's, you have to put in SFTP. Okay, let's try and connect. Say always trust this host. There you go. This is your public folder now. Double click that. So now you can make a COMP1006 folder here.
I should make it over here.
Yep. And then create a directory. And then you can make a lesson 1 directory inside. You can upload.
Is it 1000?
Yeah, 1006. Okay, and now go into COMP1006. Okay, so now highlight that G and copy all the way to the end. Yep, from there. Copy that, go to your browser, go to a new tab and just paste, and then slash, and then like the PHP info, or yeah, try to email. Okay, so check your.
Okay, so which one, that's everything better, like as an or.
They're both good. Well, they both install Apache, so it will be XAMPP and WAMP both install Apache. You can use either one, doesn't matter. They're both fine. Okay, let's look at your code again.
That's too now. Like,
Try sending it to your Georgian account. I'll be right back. Okay, it's just because the server is blocking it. You haven't done anything wrong, so you don't need to worry about it. Just wanted to show you how we send an email. Your code is correct. Okay. I'm using a different server. You're using Azure. I don't think you have permission to send email on Azure. You don't have to. It's not a big deal. Everything else we're going to do on Azure will work fine. So don't worry about it.
So, one thing whenever
Yep.
these files,
Yep.
these are in HP docs,
Okay. Yep. That's where they should be. That's good.
and so you're gonna get nothing in the long as I run as an administrator. Make it happen.
That's interesting. So you have to run it as administrator on it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what usually use this one. Let's go stream first.
So I'm curious if you get that same issue if you use it, try a different code editor. If you use something other than Atom. Like PHP Storm or Brackets or Visual Studio Code, I'm curious.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah, this one.
You know what, you might be right, but it's worth trying. We should try it. Let's try it. Even if you have like WordPad on the machine, right, which is just a simple text editor. If you open it with WordPad, I'm curious whether you can save changes. Because I've had issues with Atom in the past. Let's right click on those files. And run open web. Let's try to do that. Okay, let's add something. Yeah, it must have to do with, yeah, the permissions and stuff.
As long as I offer me information and they just want to say it or something.
This is the same issue, right?
I tried out. Look, I tried.
I see.
Is that something bad?
But it's the same kind of problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so here,
official
yeah.
list.
then run as administrator.
And, I maybe just follow through that.
I think so. Just run it as
What can you do?
It has something to do with how XAMPP, I'll look into it a bit more, see if we can find a fix. It has something to do with how it sets permissions on those files. You haven't done anything wrong. We'll just have to find a workaround. For the moment, if you can run it as administrator, do that, and we'll see if there's another solution. Still won't send the email?
Not a student account, not a Outlook, not an Exchange, none of the emails.
Tell you what, can you email your file to me?
Okay,
So email it, you don't have to do it right now. Email it to me. I'll put it up on my server, on the web server, and see what happens.
okay, so where should I send it to you?
No, I guess I really